Welcome aboard the ship that got its copy of issue 3 before J.Lee. It's the Redenbacher podcast. I'm your captain, Matt Murphy, joined for another edition of the Redenbacher Book Club by none other than Commander Ben Bullerwell. What's up, Ben?
Oh, my man. Just waking up on this beautiful Saturday morning, reading and watching a little bit of the Orville, getting ready to talk about a little bit of the Orville. How's your day thus far, my friend?
Day, it's a little too early to tell, but a week was made when J.Lee actually replied to us on Twitter. On the Redenbacher Twitter, we just asked, hey, who got their copy of issue 3? And J.Lee said to us, I didn't even get my copy yet, lol. And that was pretty awesome. We've never spoken to any of the cast members on Twitter, and that was great.
Yeah, no, that was super awesome. Super neat stuff.
Yeah, I love J.Lee, and it was great because we've interacted with both the artist, David Cabeza, the artist behind this book, and the star of this issue of the comic, so everything's coming up aces for the Redenbacher.
That's a win, yeah.
Yeah, this comic was heavily influenced by the events of Krill, episode 6 of season 1. So we went back and rewatched that, and I took a couple notes on some stuff that might be relevant for this episode just to refresh myself to talk about this, because it definitely is heavily involved.
Yeah, and it was actually an episode, be it from the first season, that we've actually not discussed yet. So, yeah, it's definitely good to go back and really analyze the episode. Because, yeah, when I first read through the comic, I was like, oh, yeah, I remember that. But, like, I don't really remember, like, the context and everything. After giving it a nice rewatch, things are pretty damn fresh.
They connect so well, too. It's almost like they thought ahead. Like, there's some lines in here that I'm going to pinpoint in a couple minutes that really do seem like either they thought ahead of, like, here's some plot points I'm going to leave out there that people can fill in later, or the guys on the second end just seamlessly connected to it, because it fits really well into the story.
Yeah, no, it's pretty crazy.
Just off the bat, one thing I'll say is I noticed, and this is like just a small thing I noticed. I don't know if it has to do with anything, but in the first scene in the episode, it's the famous scene where they find out that Bortus can eat and digest anything. And
I love that so much.
Yeah, it's great. Gordon is eating sushi there, and he's eating the same food in the comic when the three Avis guys there come in. Oh, by the way, we're going full spoilers for the comic and this episode of Krill. So if you haven't read the comic or seen the episode, which I'm sure you've seen the episode, but if you haven't read the comic, end it here.
Yeah, just press pause, go read the comic, because we are going to be talking, like we always do, in depth, full spoilers, like Matt said. So don't get mad if you think we spoiled anything. Read the book first.
Yeah, read it first. Definitely go read it and purchase it. This was a great issue, and they've been definitely doing a great job with the IP in the comic world. So definitely pick up issue 3, and it's a two-parter, so we'll be talking about The Word of Avis Part 1 today, Part 1 of 2. And it's funny, this whole plot of this episode where Ed and Gordon have to infiltrate the Krill ship, it's almost like a stand-up joke. Like, you hear the one about the two atheists that boarded a Krill ship? Like, it's so ridiculous.
Yo, it's so funny. Like, the episode alone, wow, rewatching that, I've always said that season 2 is better than season 1, but like rewatching this, like I thought this was like a top tier episode. It's actually really, really, really good.
I love this. I love watching the episode, and yeah, it did. I'm in the same state as you are, where season 1, I feel like season 2 really did what season 1 did, but even better. But I feel like season 1, I thought Priya was probably the best episode, and then this was awesome too. So who knows? I mean, we're gonna definitely do the season 1 rewatch through, because we've got plenty of time before season 3 premieres. But this has me excited to do it even more so. It was cool to see Talia on the ship too. Like, after seeing what she goes through to become Lieutenant Janelle Tyler, that's really cool to see her beforehand, to see like what mental state she's in, like that Ed leaves her in, the sense that she would want to flip on people and just be like, okay, you infiltrated me, you made me feel like a fool, now I'm gonna go do it to you. I feel like we have a much greater view of Talia after season 2, so to go back with what we know she ends up doing, it really helps illuminate how she's feeling and what she might do.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, we know that her brother was on the Krill vessel that got destroyed. Then she was infiltrated. They reached out to her kind of like as like a friend. Well, more like she reached out to them and then they kind of reciprocated. So like, yeah, Talia has been put into like a really... Oh, man. Like, she does have every reason to be mad at Ed. I think it's a really moving point, like, in the end scene, when she's talking, and she's like, why did you save the children? He's like, they're just children, like, like, they're not my enemy, like, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, well, after they saw what you've done here today, like, they will be. There's gonna be some hateful Krill in the future.
The problem with the Ed and Talia relationship, or whether it's romantic or not, is the Akana teaches that Krills are the only living being with a soul. So just by definition, she doesn't think Ed has a soul, but she sees that this is a guy who's infiltrating their people that are at war with them, but doing everything he can to save the children from going through any harm. So she must know that somewhere deep down he has compassion. So, I think she knows that despite the beliefs that have been hammered into her, Ed does have a soul, or at least, is a caring being, not like a heartless maniac. And that kind of flies in the face of everything she's been taught her whole life.
Like, even in the scene when they're in the classroom, and there's one very, very deep thinker, and he asks about, if humans have no souls, how can they, build spaceships, and how can they do this, and how can they, so, like, there's this kid, and, he's questioning his faith. So, I mean, if even like a child can see it, I think there might be a bright future for the Krill one day. But Talea's been raised in an environment that's seriously religious. Like, it'd be sacrilege to question the word of Avis, right? So, but yes, like, she's met Ed, she's seen that people maybe aren't quite as same as, like, the beasts, and that the Krill aren't perhaps like the superior being.
Yeah, exactly. So we see their plight aboard the Akar, where they go to get the Krill Bible, the Akan, and it's really interesting. I highlighted this line when they're scanning it, and they only took photos. You think they have a better way of like completely copying matter over, or like scanning it, but either way, they take basically like screenshots, like I would do to take notes of something in class or something. What's funny is, as they're reading this, I think it's Ed or Gordon. I think it's Gordon says xenoanthropologists will be looking at this through this for months, which was, that's exactly what we're looking at in this issue of the comic. So it's very well tied together.
Yeah, absolutely. The stitch work is flawless.
Yeah, so I think maybe that could have been a kernel of an idea in their head when they were thinking of the xenoanthropologists. And wouldn't you know it, we just looked it up, and the Krill episode was written by David A. Goodman. So that's connective tissue. He might have been thinking, like, I'm sure these comics aren't something he just fell out of the blue, and they would know that one day they're going to do it, because they created the show in like almost like in the mirror image of Star Trek, and Star Trek had comics pretty early on too. So it's, I think that they definitely planned this well in advance.
Yeah, I would say it was either planned. I mean, obviously, like, you don't just spring the idea and have comics like, 2 months later. So I'd say you're probably right. Like, it probably was something that they've been looking into for a while. Like, after probably like season 1 did exceptionally well, they're probably like, hey, you know what? Like, we should start making something in the future. We should have some plans for another medium. And also, I mean, when you think about it, like, this could also be like David having not enough time in a 42, 45 minute, whatever episode to really dive as deep as he would have liked to. So now maybe that the comics have been like made, it's given him probably like an opportunity to go back and to address some things that he may have not had time for in the actual episode.
And flesh it out. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Either way, I mean, he's done a phenomenal job, and we don't know what your intentions are, David, but you've done a hell of a good job.
Like, one thing, it's funny, we see Talea there is basically like a teacher or an educator or some sort with these students, and it's funny because after season 1, Ed and Kelly both end up dating teachers.
I was just gonna say that. I was gonna say she's pretty much like the cautious like counterpart. Like,
she's like the mirror image of Cassius, where she is just like, she's super devout to like religion and blah 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 blah. Like, I feel like she is almost like a complete counter to Cassius, where Cassius is almost like a little laid back, not as like aggressive, and she is like the opposite of that, where she dives herself fully into everything and is like, no one can tell me I'm wrong kind of mentality.
Tune in next week as we do a complete character comparison between
Cassius and Talea. But no, I think that's a very interesting parallel.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Ed and Kelly break up. They both end up dating teachers. It's kind of weird, man.
Exactly. So is there anything else you want to mention about the episode? I went kind of light on it because I think we're going to do a deep dive later on. But anything else you want to say about it?
So, yeah, I don't really have too much more to say at all, actually. We'll save that for another day.
Yeah, I'll mention that Ed and Gordon observe like a religious ceremony. They almost go to like a little like, the Krill ship has their own kind of like temple on the car. So they go through that, and there's like an infamous scene where they stab a head with like a knife repeatedly, and there's a panel of that, and David captured that moment like perfectly. I literally just saw it on the show and then went back and reread it, and like it looks like it was ripped right from the page. So really good recreation of that by David.
It is actually like almost a little chilling, you see, you're like, oh my god, wait, it's like digging up past trauma or something.
Yeah, he mentioned that the Mocklins were super hard to draw, but I can only imagine, like, the Krill seems super tough to me to draw as well.
I would say the Krill should be just as hard as Mocklins probably. Like if you look at all like the ridges on their face, like their little chin pincer thing going on there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've watched much of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, but there's a species. They're not exclusively in DS9, I don't think, but they're called the Cardassians. Very close to the Kardashians, but we're not keeping up with them. Don't worry. But yeah, and they look very similar. I'd almost like to say that's where
A little bit
they've
of
got
influence.
some inspiration from. But yeah, guys, if you're not familiar with DS9, you should just like Google Star Trek Cardassian. But yeah, just like their physical likeness it's quite close.
Yeah, no, I think I've heard of the Cardassians before. That's a cool comparison. So yeah, definitely look that up. So, anyways, moving on to the comic, it was interesting. We open up with Lamar and Gordon in a simulation of the Holy War of like ancient times.
I wish I knew what like this fight is supposed to be, if it's supposed to be like a reenactment, um, or like a reference more so, I suppose, to like an actual like Holy War. I don't know much about history. I'm sorry, guys. Not a history
Yeah,
buff.
yeah, human history. We're a little foggy on Earth's history. It's not the only history out there. The Redenbacher. We got to know the history of many planets. So no, it's you just know. I think that it's important. It's foreshadowing later on. There's going to be religious issues. They're like, wait, so those guys just kind of believe a slightly different version of this than us. Let's go kill them. Like they're laughing at it, but then they still have the same issue with the Krill, where there's no easy solution with them either.
Yeah, like when you actually like read like the comic there, all right, you guys, let's kill those other guys who believe in exactly the same God that we do, but differently, and that just really annoys us. Like charge.
And that's not
Um,
even the simulation I'd want to do. Like Gordon says to Ed, like Ed, I cut off like 10 guys' heads in there. You should come next time. It's like, I'm good.
it's funny because Gordon, he takes pleasure in like like beheading 10 people in like the simulator, but when he sees like the Krill in the religious ceremony with the head, he's like, I think I'm gonna throw up.
Yeah, that's a good note actually, because like you said, I need like 100 pounds of aloe vera or whatever when they're getting back from the ship, and that disgusts him. Which is it was almost like it was like a real life simulation where he simulated the Krill look on his body and then went into it. But simulations, fun, real life, nay. But that's the same way I am with video games.
Absolutely. I mean, it's always fun to get a nice juicy headshot on some pleb. But that doesn't mean anything in real life. Yeah.
So yeah, Ed is not excited about joining them on their religious studies there, but it looks like we're gonna get it either way. We're gonna be diving into religion because we've got a Union transport ship that seems to be flying towards Krill space blindly, and the crew try to stop it and put in the tractor beam.
They don't turn off their engines and they almost send them flying into Krill space, which actually they would have liked that, I bet.
Yeah, that's probably what they wanted. It's like either way, either we get in their computer and mess with, or they slingshot us into space, which they wouldn't because the Union is pretty peaceful and doesn't want to just slingshot their problems over in someone else's yard.
Boom! Like,
Yeah, I love when they explain stuff super easy to the people that aren't like scientifically minded, and they're just like, yeah, it'd be like a slingshot, be like an elastic band if they use their engines in the tractor beam and get released. I like that.
yeah, no, it is like a really good way of kind of like illustrating the idea, like what would happen, like physically speaking.
They do it on Futurama with Bender going like, it's just like when too much air gets in a balloon and stuff like that. Like they know what they're doing. I like it. It's simple and I like it. When I was reading this the second time, I was like, oh my god, are they actually like gonna try to risk themselves blowing up? Like, is worshiping Avis more important to them than like living to go and learn more about it? Like, would they just explode themselves for this good concept? Who knows? No, but it turns out no. It turns out they had a much more well thought out plan than that.
And that they did.
Yeah, so Lamar, it's his time to shine in this comic, and he calls up and he manages to link their computers and engineering to the control panel on the shuttle there, and the transport, and they managed to turn off the engines. I didn't know you could do that, but apparently it has its cost, as we find out later.
Yeah, I mean, like it makes sense from like a technological standpoint. It's kind of just like remote control, really. It's like if you think about it, it would be kind of like accessing your computer from your cell phone. So like it makes sense. Like, you like pretty much hack their system and then take control over it. But yeah, like brilliant like timing and everything. Like
There's only like 4.7 seconds or something Isaac mentions, but Lamar does it just in time, but not without some weird feedback, as Dan mentions. So that's interesting why there would be some weird feedback.
oh well, that can't be important. Let's disregard that.
Yeah, so so with that, we get the ship full of assholes taken into the hangar bay for further inspection. And it's funny because Gordon calls them a ship full of assholes, and and Bortus says that he could curse. So this is basically the first time Bortus has called someone an asshole, even if it's just by agreement, which I found.
Indirectly calling them an asshole, yeah, just like.
And for those who are on the Bortus swear word watch, actually he called someone an asshole in season 7 of episode 102. No, whatever. Right. I'm pretty sure.
Looney in the swear jar.
Well, actually, we have no currency, so maybe a job title in the swear jar or something.
A little bit of honor in the swear jar.
yeah. Put some of your favorite stuff in here. But yeah, this was a nice little opening. So the crew goes to confront their new guest in the bay there, and they open the transport and they find Darden, who's there with 2 friends. One is a Terran and the other is an alien of some sorts. And Darden says he's a xenoanthropologist, which is just like we heard them talk about in the Krill episode.
Coincident? I don't know.
Coincidence? I don't know.
But yeah, get an interview with David pretty soon, maybe.
Maybe after this is all over. But yeah, Darden mentions that he's been neglecting his ship's maintenance, which I could see if people not dealing with their car, the engine light's on or whatever. But if this is the one thing that lets you survive in the atmosphere or in the environment you're in, period, I don't know. I'd be checking on it more. But I think that there's a few reasons why they let their computers fall away like that.
There's a panel down there with Kelly and Ed in, presumably, I think it would be Ed's office, because I think I can see Kermit in the corner there. And she goes, navigation malfunction, communication malfunction, sensor malfunction. They're either lucky to be alive or, a part of me wants to say, oh, well, Darden, we're anthropologists. We're not tech savvy, engineers or anything. So as Lamar brings up later, Celeste went to engineering with Lamar, so she should have the know-how to avoid these certain kind of what seems to be basic maintenance, really, at an engineering level.
Yeah, sometimes people's beliefs cause them to throw away their scholarly pursuits for other means.
Potentially.
And one thing is funny, I actually went back to look for that Kermit there that you mentioned. It's where's Waldo with Kermit? It's oh, there he is. So I'm liking that stuff. David got to draw Kermit, but not for the Muppets. So, if the Muppets are making a comic and they're looking for, a great artist.
It's your boy.
Yeah,
David's got
it. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, that is interesting that Celeste didn't choose to do that. So there's a few theories, I guess, I was going to talk about them later, but they mentioned, are they spies or whatever? But it looks like this is just a way that they came up with a plan, gee, what would get us picked up by Union ship, and then how can we get us going there into Krill space? Because either their tech was failing already and they were hoping for this, or they're hoping to aimlessly get into Krill space. I have no idea what their entire plan was. We're definitely going to need the blanks filled in issue 2.
My interpretation of things, I think it's Celeste probably that's tampered with the electronics or whatever. So then to kind of give the illusion of drifting aimlessly into Krill space.
That's a good point. She's the one with the know-how for sure.
Mm-hmm. So we'll figure it out by the next issue, guys. Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one element. I think Celeste would definitely have the know-how to mess with that technology or to make it look like no one's been looking after it. So there's that. Or she's so devout with the teachings of Avis that she just did neglect it, and it worked out with her story. So who knows?
Yeah, it's all true. These are all very likely possibilities.
So yeah, Darden mentions that his sensors, communications, and navigations are out, and that he's been flying blind in the Krill space. That's just such a shady story. But they have all the qualifications. They say shortly after that Kelly looked it up, and it does say it in their system that they are xenoanthropologists, and they have been sent out to go to Mizar 2, which is what they mentioned, that they were going to go check out the culture of Mizar 2, and that's all there in the records. So by all accounts, it is shady that all their systems are down, but they are our people. We can't just throw them in the brig.
As we find out, these are the same people that studied the Ancana that was brought back. So these are Union people, and despite how iffy situation looks right now, they have all authority to be doing what they're doing. It's just very suspicious.
Yeah, the possibility of them being spies is mentioned in this issue, and they'd have to be really, really good spies with a lot of stuff done if they were, because they'd have to be implanted with a full history. So technically, with them being interested in the Krill religion, they almost are not really sleeper agents, but they almost are converting and just siding with the Krill more so than the humans. So this is essentially what they would want there as a Krill.
Yeah, it's kind of true, yeah. The way I could see it is if they were spies, it'd definitely be just double agents. Like, I wouldn't say that it's any like transcellular micrografting took place or anything like that, because Lamar does know Celeste from school and everything. So I think it'd be too much of like if they are who they say they are and they're like double agents, I think that would be the more likely event if they were spies. But
Yeah, unless you've got the Dr. Aronov's research there with them and the Krill ship to go back in time or something. I don't think there's any way to put spies in that way.
no,
That
totally.
deeply. Yeah, so anyways, Ed mentions that he does have to report to the Eden Station, and Darden and his people are just forced. They're not prisoners, but they give him quarters and stuff. It's like, yeah, you guys just stay around here until we figure out what's going on. And one thing I love the cover for this issue. And now that we've got the story for, or at least seen the events in the comic, it's great because you have Lamar and Celeste on the cover. They look really happy, and then you have Yaphit with like a mouth, like and Dan just looks like too awkward to even like go and approach her. I think it's a really good little encapsulation of the engineering vibes.
Yeah, it's like super like neckbeardy down in engineering, I would say.
Yeah.
With Lamar being the exception, and Yaphit, I mean,
I want Yaphit with a beard now that you mention that. Like his whole like lower like stomach area is just like neck beard. That'd be
beardy. Oh my god.
I need that. Yaphit's been greatly rendered in this issue. It can't be easy to get the gelatinous blob and get the color blends right and stuff like that, but no, this was a great rendering of Yaphit by David Cabeza.
And in the scene when they're just going down to like the shuttle bay there, and then Yaphit's like, "Hey, John." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I noticed something unusual." Just like that little cheeky grin that Yaphit has.
No, it's great. Really good interpretation of Yaphit here. And I love how Dan and Yaphit don't even give up when they realize that they already know each other and clearly, have more in common than Dan and Yaphit.
It's like there's some sparks flying and they're still trying their best.
Yeah, I love Dan when Dan just goes like, "I'm Dan and we want to help you. I'm Dan." Like he's just like so often.
Yaphit's like smooth.
But I mean, he's already dated Alara there, Dan. So I mean, he's he has a way with women, except that they didn't go so well.
Yeah. I wanna make a clear differentiation between having gone on a date and having dated.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we're not talking about carbon dating, although it is carbon that is dating. I just like how they get the pose right too of Yaphit when he types up on the like engineering panel there from the ground. He has his arms stretched out. Like it really is just like the show.
No, it's perfect. A strange little thought that I had when I noticed that is like, why is it that Yaphit? I mean, he doesn't have eyes, so it doesn't really matter that his head isn't to that level. But
when you mentioned that, I was thinking like, what's the most efficient way for him to go up on the thing and press the buttons? Like he should just go up and stand over it like a footstool or whatever with like 4 little stances, and then he can have his own like limbs come out and like he can hover above it and have better access to the buttons and press them quicker if he has to.
True.
Yeah, and if this is your first episode of the Redenbacher, yes, we do talk about Yaphit this much every episode. So
it's true. So I hope you guys like Yaphit as much as we do.
Yeah, what's funny is like Celeste and John, they're still talking. This is on the next page now, and then she's like, "John Lamar, come to my rescue." And then Dan's like, "You like the beach, Celeste?" And then Yaphit's like, "Give it up, Dan, we're done." And he's like almost like melting, and he's like totally like sad there. He knows like it's game over, bro, and like Dan doesn't quite realize it yet. I really like that, and yeah, so we learned that Lamar and Celeste went to Union Point together and that she was actually in engineering. And then she mentions that she gave it up to take up xenoanthropology, which is, that's huge. You're giving up science for xenoanthropology, but specifically interested in the Krill. Like, it's not like, what's a job I can get into? It's, or Darden there convinced her to come in the mission. He was looking for someone that was, good at engineering that he could recruit for his ship. Because otherwise, I don't know how she ends up here because she didn't graduate as an engineer. I guess she became an anthropologist and then. But I don't know what was the crux for her getting into anthropology. She must have met Darden first.
There must have been like something because when you look at like engineering and you look at like anthropology, like these are like 2 very different fields of work. Mm-hmm. Like I would like I don't know what happened because as we know at this point, like Lamar has been an acting officer for quite a while now, like at least a year, and presumably before then. So we can pretty much guess that like Celeste, like I don't even know how that's like possible because they went to school together. She dropped a course and then started a whole new major. Anyway,
we don't know if she graduated is anthropology too. She could just be like under the wing of Darden and their crew and stuff like that, and not officially graduate, right? Like I don't think she cares about prestige, right? I think as soon as she found out about the Krill religion or the word of Avis, I think that would definitely kind of sway her, because that seems to be the biggest focus of her life is the Krill religion that kind of guides all her decisions.
Like, it seems like the Krill religion aspect would have come in like much later than like the anthropology, just because like, well, I don't know, it's hard to say.
Maybe she
I
had an
guess.
elective in xenoanthropology, and then it just swayed her when they talked about the Krill religion. When they're just like, yeah, you know what, that makes sense. A role for men, a role for women. Schedule this community, blah 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 blah. And who knows? Maybe that blew her mind. So you never know. I don't know, some way. I'm sure they'll explain it in some dialogue next week of like, oh yeah, I met Darden and then he swayed me, because next week we're getting a scene with Lamar going, come on Celeste, I knew you. What happened to you?
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. We'll just hang out for next week and see what happens there because, like you say, there's got to be a conversation between Lamar and Celeste there. You're definitely right.
I'd forgotten about this, but they mentioned this in the Krill episode that the Krill homeworld, also called Krill, I'm pretty sure, is surrounded by clouds. So only like 4% of the light actually makes it through. So that's why they used light on them to get out of there. It's their great weakness. But it's funny how this species that's so enthralled by religion, the one thing that actually that can stop them is being literally enlightened. So enlightenment is what is their greatest weakness.
Yeah, it's true.
It is funny how literally like knowledge is often represented by light, and just like the light just exposes everything that we're afraid of, like all of our fears, like, oh, maybe this one belief is false. So I think it's a really cool kind of like literal interpretation of like the light is just shining its light on everything. It's cool.
I like that. It's like the only thing that can really change their ways would be enlightenment. And I mean, like, so often religion, like certain things are just like asking certain questions or having certain uncertainties is really like against like taboo. So like staying in the dark in like a figurative way is keeping like the Krill in such like an extreme religious culture. So yeah, no, that's actually super cool, Matt. I like that a lot.
One thing I was wondering with the Krill ship is like, why even have the feature to have the lights turn off like brighter than they are there on the ship? Like, it's just like asking for it. It's like, let's make it so that our guns turn around and can shoot us from the inside or something. It's just so like, no, why would you even do that? But I still love the episode, but there are little kind of like nitpicky things I could mention.
I'm pretty sure in the episode they say something about having to overload them or something.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
But I know what you mean. It's kind of like if people made a light source, like a different kind of light bulb, that actually produced like mad UV rays and gave us like, like skin cancer or something.
Yeah.
But like we just keep them at a level that it doesn't do that. Like
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Yeah, so later on we're in the meal hall and Gordon is eating his aforementioned sushi. He's enjoying that. Maybe he ordered it thinking, oh man, he's probably got a hankering for sushi. Can't quite recall it, but all this Krill stuff, I guess, might give him an appetite for sushi.
makes you crave some raw fish. Hey, want some wasabi, Bordas? Like
yeah. So Darden enters and with his little entourage there, and he asks Gordon about the religious ceremony. And this is where we learn the names of his friends, Karks and Franz. So I assume Franz is the human and Karks is the alien.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and can you guess which is which? Like,
yeah.
I actually like to think that the kind of reptilious guy's name is Franz.
But yeah, so we finally get a name for Karks and Franz, and they're intent. They really want to know about this. So Gordon tells them about their infiltration of the Akar and how they watched, the Krill ceremony, a religious ceremony, as spies. So that they seemed interested in that, and then they run off. And we then see Celeste run to Lamar, which is pretty easy to do when Lamar's like hanging out outside your quarters there waiting. And he asked her if he can buy her a drink. And that's way easier when you don't have capital in this world and you can just synthesize anything that you want.
That luxury, I guess.
It's mentioned in... they say it on the Orville Wikia. They say that that's a continuity error or like an error. But I don't know about that. It's just kind of like an expression like buy you a drink. It's better than like synthesize you a free beverage that anyone has access to.
Hi, can I be a gentleman and prepare you a beverage that you could easily prepare on your own with little to no effort?
Hey, you want some water from that fountain in the hallway? It's just...
I got you. Like...
Yeah.
No, I know what you mean. It kind of doesn't make sense, but come on, guys. It's just like a flirtatious, generic line.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. So she turns him down, saying, "Can I take a rain check? They're gonna go do some, go over some protocol before landing on Mizar 2, just to be prepared." So he says, "Okay," and then he runs off to see Alara, who's observing the hangar bay. I think this is in like Alara's little security area, and she's looking over the bay camera just on the outside of the ship. And Lamar mentions that he can use the internal cameras of the ship to see exactly what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Alaris is like, oh, that's kind of like an invasion of privacy. Like, I can say I heard someone scream, and then she smiles. It's like, fair enough. And it's kind of good they did spy on here. So they spy on them, and then we get this reaction shot that's almost like the angle that you see of like the angle of the camera when it's pointing out the birth canal during like a birth giving scene or something like that. But they look all surprised, like, oh my god, I can't believe it. And in my mind, I'm like, what are they having like an orgy in that little shuttle or there? What's going on? I think that's what they wanted. They wanted to give the people with the dirty minds a chance to let their imaginations run wild there.
It's like, what's going on? Some kind of religious sex party? Like,
yeah. Well, cut out the sex party, but keep the religious, because they are recreating the ceremony Gordon was just talking about. They don't have a human head though. Maybe use like a watermelon or something instead.
got a little smiley face drawn on it with a Sharpie. Like,
And the ceremony doesn't have to be done with a human. It must just be another life form's head, like another sentient life form's head. Because
it definitely does not need to be a human, because Krill regard everything that aren't Krill as like as like a lesser. So it'd kind of be like how we see, say, all the animals as just being animals and we're superior to them. There's actually a reference. I can't remember if it was in the comic or in the episode, but Kelly makes like a reference to Christianity when she says like God made like beasts inferior to man. So it's similar to that.
I think that was in the episode. I think that was in the episode. But no, it's true. It all ties together because these are like heavily connected, and I just think it's really funny to see like a society of atheists and the way that other people rebel is by taking up religions. It's funny, even if it's ones that specifically say like anyone who's not the person that made the religion is like garbage. It's like, oh yeah, I could get into this. That's the problem with this whole belief of the following of Avis, where it's just like nothing has a soul unless it's a Krill. So, at that point it's super exclusionary. So that's why they're at war with all these other united forces. It's just the Krill is like, no, this is my devotion. And it's funny because they almost mirror the Kaylon, where the Kaylon are robotic, meaning like they almost feel the same way with their knowledge and feeling that they can never be taught, and their cold calculatedness of being non-biological. Even though I don't know where that stands exactly, actually, but you look at the Krill, which are biological and have religion, so it's like logic versus emotion a lot of times.
Yeah, no, it's actually quite interesting that you bring that up. I wonder what the Krill actually do think of the Kaylon, because Kaylon are not biological creatures, so they would be excluded from like Avis's teaching probably. Even though Talea in the episode Krill, she mentions like, well, even a computer can speak. That doesn't mean they have a soul.
But there you go, and that's probably their thought process on the Kaylon right there in that sentence. That's good to highlight there, actually. And we know that they know that the Kaylon's a greater threat because they helped them in the season 2 finale. Yeah, well, not the season 2 finale, in Identity Part 2, they helped them. So, the Krill, they know what the greater evil is there. But and then I remember after the conflict when I was saying maybe our people will see peace, and then he's like, well, Avis will show us the way, or we'll check with Avis about that. But so I don't think that's gonna happen either way, unless someone's gonna rewrite the on-car there or whatever.
Turns out there was mistranslation. Like,
I think a lot of it's very similar to the Constitution, where in the States, where it's like, these are our core beliefs, but they don't think about what could be outside of this world. Like, they don't think about, like, the right to bear arms. They didn't think that people would be able to have, like, RPGs and, like, ridiculous weaponry they couldn't even fathom then. Like, they had, like, muskets and shit around then. Probably not even that. That's how well I know history. So there's that. And then you think of the Krill. They write the Ankar, and they're like, okay, everyone is safe, blah, 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 and you have to be Krill. At that point, who knows if they even had space travel around then. A lot of religions are found at ancient times in people's history. So very well could have been before they even knew about other forces out there, other species and other kinds of people.
No, you're absolutely right, and that's something I hadn't really considered. Like the Ankana may have been written like before space travel. If the Krill had not left their planet at this point in time, like the context would have been different, based off like where their species has gotten to in, I guess, just like evolution. So I mean, yeah, like if someone who practices Christianity on planet Earth was like, I feel like that's like a big problem with not problem with Christianity, but they like would deny like the possibility of intelligent life like residing elsewhere in the galaxy based on the text that kind of guides them through this world, right? So it could be similar to that with the Krill, like where they had never been exposed to these other like sentient, like humanoid creatures after they left their planet. Maybe they just, didn't think to, well, I mean, like it's religious text, it's sacred. You can't adjust it, you can't alter it, you know what I mean? So maybe you're right. Like maybe they just figured, oh, well, since we were the intelligent species on this planet, maybe that's the way it is in the universe after they acquired space travel.
That's a good point. One thing that I noticed as well in the Krill episode was, I'm pretty sure it's Kelly that says, usually as a people advance, religion falls by the wayside is more or less what she said, to paraphrase. And I was thinking of the Mocklins, where the Mocklins still have their heavy belief system, but they're still allowed to join the Union and stuff like that. So they're kind of similar to the Krill, but they're not necessarily as extreme in their beliefs. At least they don't try to do it aboard other ships and stuff like that. Like they can still commune with the Union, but it's like back on Mocklins, we're doing it our way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's interesting, and like the Union respects that. They respect that their culture is almost to the core fundamentally different.
Even though Ed highlighted that, like, we don't think it's going to stay that way for very long after the Reflectors episode or Deflectors.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, I mean, I guess like the general like idea that we're trying to convey is that religion, in a lot of instances, it keeps a mind closed. And it doesn't really allow you to think outside of the box that you've been trained to think within.
Yeah, ancient text, ancient literature, you can't just follow that to a point. You have to it's interesting to learn the way people thought back in the day, and some core concepts do carry through over time, no matter how far away we go. But there is a lot of things that just fall by the wayside, and you realize, like, we kind of need to, like, evolve and adapt to these kind of views. We can't go killing anybody for something that they literally cannot control, like, So there's a lot of things that need to be left by the wayside to adapt. You can't just follow something written 100% of the time. The person you were a decade ago, if you can give yourself advice now, you learn stuff throughout time. We're always evolving. The human consciousness is always changing and adapting ideas that work and don't work. So we really need to follow the stuff that works. We need to know our core principles and know what needs to be changed and improved upon.
Absolutely. Like in an ever evolving society, like things just don't stay relevant that long. And like, yeah, like when you're taking lessons from 2000 plus years ago, that's for a specific time, and times do change. So, I mean, yeah, like maybe it's time for the Krill to really question their beliefs now that they've been exposed to so much more.
And religion helps people feel belonging, like they get a sense of belonging, that they're a part of something. And I think that that's what this group of xenoanthropologists got, because when Darden's talking about, them picking up their religion, he says, we'd have daily study of the scripture, prayer before meals, the roles of men and women. We began to fully understand the belief system. So they got really into it, and they just found like a piece of belonging, which, doesn't necessarily need to be there with religion. But it's really funny how if you take out that one element of like nothing that isn't Krill has a soul, and humans can join them, then maybe the Krill might change their mind, like, hey, we can all worship Avis together, it doesn't matter if you're Krill. Like, if that one line wasn't there, who knows, maybe that they can coexist completely with the Union.
Fundamentally, at like the level of this religion and that verse alone, it just makes it impossible really for them to be accepted, unfortunately.
And it's actually the perfect guise, because after Alara and Lamar see them doing the religious study, the Orville crew confront Darden and his people, and Darden reveals that Admiral Halsey taxed them to study the Ankar, and that they began practicing the religion. It's funny, xenoanthropology is the perfect cover for this, because it's also revealed that they spoke to Talea, who's currently a prisoner on the Orville, and she ran them through the ceremony. So the xenoanthropology is the perfect cover. It's like, oh, I'm just studying this religion. But what happens if what you study, and you're supposed to be the authority on this, actually gets past your logic and reasoning and starts to change the way you think? So this is a really cool thought of that, or example of that.
We're also like really, really lucky, because I remember in the episode of the Krill, they don't get the complete Ankana. Like, if you watch, like, the last scene, I believe that they're taking data from the Ankana is when their, like, hologram emitter starts running out. So they miss, like, a good amount of, like, the book. Like, they're not able to get it. And then we see in the comic that Talea, being the devout, religious Avis worshiper she is, she filled in a lot of content. Like, I don't know if you took note to how much of the Ankana was left unscanned, but like, and if she completed the Ankana for them, like, that's amazing.
Or she could also lie and tell them stuff that could help suit the purpose of the Krill even more and say, do not trust a human, do not do this, and you must do anything you can to help your cause or whatever. Just fill in with little even more things that would help them maybe get her out of the prison. Maybe somehow she got technology from them that would allow her to switch forms into Lieutenant Tyler. You never know. Another thing is, not all religion isn't all bad. It's given us something great like Easter eggs, which David Cabezas managed to sneak into one of the panels here when they show them studying all the Krill text and all the basis of the Krill religion. There's a screen there with Kark's looking at that has the Krill text there, and it says the names David Cabeza, Seth MacFarlane, David A. Goodman, and Michael Atiyeh. So people created, Seth responsible for creating the show, and David Goodman, David Cabeza, and Michael Atiyeh who gave us the comic there. So it's a nice little shout out to them.
Yeah, it's a brilliant little shout out actually. I didn't catch it. Matt had to show me it.
Well, I had to find it on Twitter thanks to really good Twitter fan base out there that knows and is just as into this stuff as we are. So shout out to you guys. And no, I like the little Easter eggs. And we were seeing how these guys ended up Krillin like a villain, but we ended up finding out the little Easter eggs. That was cool. And that probably will be the title of the episode because I don't want to think of anything else.
Krillin like a villain. I'm down.
Because they are Krillin like a villain, because the Krills are the villain and they are learning the Krill text. So, that's cool.
It's true. They're living the Krill life.
Yeah, so, I hate it when good xenoanthropologists go bad, but seems like this is the way. So, this is my core problem with them basically studying the religion is it says we're going to kill humans. So it just seems like that's a likely way to get them killed. I don't know. Maybe they asked Tilley to clarify on the show. So, no. Humans that serve our cause, you'll be slaves. You get the luxury of being enslaved by Avis. Who knows?
So, anyway, our xenoanthropologists are very much under the opinion, now that everything's, on the table there, they're very much of the opinion that the Krill will accept them. Alara is like, but that's insane. The Krill will kill you on sight. Celeste says, you're wrong. They will accept us. Based on the text that we know, they're not going to be accepted, and it's a huge oversight. Yes, they're very passionate about the religion, but I mean, I feel like we're picking and choosing the things that we like to think about here. We know that they're not going to be accepted.
Yeah, maybe the Humans Don't Have Souls line did not make the translation, and then I guess that's what. But I like it when they accuse him of being spies. He says, "No, we're not spies," and then Darden says, "We were worshiping Avis. Don't you believe in freedom of religion?" And he's so sinister in that panel when he says it too. It's you don't believe in freedom of religion? No, we do, but just not one that's gonna go get you killed and now us killed.
Yeah, it's there's a scene with Darden, and he's like, "You look down on us for believing in something greater than ourselves." Something that gives us strength and a purpose and a shared identity. And then, I just love this scene with Ed, and he's like, maybe I do, because I just can't see religion as anything other than superstition. I don't know. It's it's quite heavy.
Seth himself is a well-known atheist, and I think that Ed Mercer's very much a parallel to his real views there. And I think that, there is a happy medium to yeah, it's cool to have faith. It's fun to have faith. And the cold calculating of no faith at all, nothing, it's all science, blah, blah, blah. There's got to be a happy medium. And I don't think that, just dismissing any religious belief, I don't think, that's kosher. That's not necessarily always the right thing to do or ever necessarily. But I think there's a happy medium of respect belief and, science has an important part in society as well.
I just think it's interesting because they're getting so involved in this religion. And from what I can tell at this point in time, religion has kind of phased out quite heavily, and we've accepted to look beyond religion. And it's just strange to see this xenoanthropologist group kind of finding so much comfort in another religion, which seems like something of the past at this point in time.
Yeah, it's like Kylo Ren in Force Awakens, digging up Darth Vader's old helmet and be like, yeah, this is great, this is awesome. It's this isn't going to go the way you think it will, kid. There's certain people, especially that in believing a different religion, it's going to hurt them more than others. For instance, if you're, if you're a cis male or whatever, and you're getting into some religions that hate homosexuals, you're going to have an easier time than actual homosexuals getting into that religion. So, it all depends on the person, and there's certain people that are excluded more than others in a lot of religions. In this case, it's all humans. So everyone in the universe is united by exclusion, basically, by the Krill, which is probably one of the dumbest parts of their religion. So you basically just make them the enemy of everybody.
Yeah, I agree.
That's some heavy stuff. So yeah, Ed mentions that he didn't get all the Endcar, and then Darden says like I managed to get time to talk to Talea, which is so. I mean, it's stupid of them. It's not stupid of them to let it because like he's a xenoanthropologist. Of course he would, but still think Ed should have thought like, why does he want to see Talea so bad? But of course he has a perfect excuse to go see Talea because I've been studying their people. So it actually is like a really good excuse or a good cover.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. Yeah, it's the perfect cover. We need help with this text that is Krill. We have one Krill in custody. Little do they know they're actually looking for like religious guidance, but eh.
Yeah, it's true. So as as we're thinking like we're gonna protect the lives here, and then Darden goes, you may not have a choice in that matter, Captain. And then Kelly and Gordon are like, what do you mean? And then it's already too late. Gordon calls him to the bridge because he's noticed that he says, I stopped us because we're not where we're supposed to be. And the navigational computer is on the fritz and they can't find their location. So something has happened. Isaac mentions that he's found the difficulty. A computer program is downloaded into the engineering systems and found its way to the navigational computer. It has been minutely adjusting our course over the last several hours, so we have veered from our planned trajectory. And I think we can all kind of know where they're going. They're trying to veer them into Krill space.
Yes, sir. They sure as heck are.
So yeah, Lamar says that he thinks it's the feedback that they got from the transport, and then Dan, of course, has to nudge and be like, "It was that feedback that you told me to ignore." Like totally like ratting him out. It's like, is this the time to really say that's like you told me to ignore? It's like, Dan, come on. Lamar says like, yeah, there was feedback when they hooked up to their computer to turn off the engines. They got unusual feedback, and he says that they may have snuck the program in there, be it when they were connected to the system. And Dan again reminds him that he detected the feedback, and he said, "Captain, you probably know that," and that he specifically did it. So Dan's trying to get brownie points for doing this. And then Lamar finds the program on the computer. There's a series of like zeros and ones like the Matrix, and then he says that it must have been Celeste that snuck it onto the computer.
So it turns out she's still quite the engineer, hey?
Yeah, sometimes you don't forget all the stuff you learn in school. So that was nice, but I was confused here. It's like, so did they plant the program when the computer, when the Orville accessed their engines, and then they planted it, and then she went and activated it later? Is that the idea?
I think like the most that I can make sense out of it would be that yes, when they remotely took control over the xenoanthropologists shuttle, when they did that, there was like a system link, and she must have uploaded like packets of some sort like through that connection, and then maybe she got kind of into a place where she maybe shouldn't have been on the Orville, or maybe it just like remotely started like after all the files like transfer was done. That's like the best that I can really come up with.
Yeah, sometimes Celeste is more. You never know what you're gonna get with all Celeste. So that was
Celeste is more. I like that.
For a terrible pun of the week. So we find out that yes, it's been slowly putting them on a different course, and Borda says, "I've determined our coordinates." And it goes, "I don't think I want to know." And I think we already know, as Kelly says. I think you already do know. And they're in Krill territory as we wait for issue 3. It's a good cliffhanger. It's awesome because, like, not just in Krill space, just the Orville. They're in there with people that actually want to connect to the Krill and communicate with them and probably switch over to be on their side. So it's like you've already got, turncoats on board, and you can't even control your own navigational system. So they're in trouble.
Yeah, it's definitely true. I mean, there are 35 light years across the border, so they're quite deep into Krill space. I wouldn't be surprised if we see our anthropologist group try and reach the Krill like with like a hidden transmission or something next episode, next comic, I suppose, next issue. There you go.
Yeah, I really want them to give Talea that technology that I mentioned before, because I think that would be a cool end. Last week I mentioned it'd be sweet if we got the human form of Talea, and I think that would be a really cool ending of like whatever happens with the xenoanthropologist next week. Maybe they get sent off, or like, but yeah, too bad that didn't work. Although I think I might have something else that might, and then they hand her some tech or something like that. I think it'd be cool.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if they got like with like the microcellular or cellular micrografting, if they maybe like donated like human DNA to it or something.
That's cool. Karks need not apply. But yeah.
Yeah, piss off Karks.
No, that's a good point. That's cool. That's interesting. So I think that would be a really cool ending for a comic. It'd be a really cool, chilling ending. But who knows what we're gonna get next week? It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. We're in a pickle right now, so there's gonna be a lot of good stuff in this next issue for sure.
Yeah, and we have a Lara that are open the pickle jar, but what do we do when the juices are leaking into the control panel and stuff? We're in trouble. So, it'll be interesting. The Krill next week, I mean, it's hard enough as it is to get people away from the religion that they're devoted to, as is, let alone when you have no time and they're in the middle of meeting their holy men, So it's trouble.
Yo, it's definitely trouble.
Yeah, but I really enjoyed this issue. I don't think any of these comics have been below a 4 out of 5 for me. They've been really enjoyable. Totems of the show that push the narrative forward and add more stuff to it. Even if we're a year behind what we saw on TV, I think that they're adding a lot of cool world building stuff that could hopefully play out on the show or in future comics.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think these comics have been nothing but fantastic. It's been so nice to be able to go through them, kind of, keep busy while we patiently wait for season 3. Yeah, I think it's a beautiful bridge between seasons 1 and 2. And I don't know, like I can't wait to read the next episode.
And Ben says episode instead
yeah.
of issue because it pretty much is just like an episode of the comic, but and he's not a comic guy. But no, I mean it's great if they've got Ben converted to reading comics now, they've done a good job. Is there anything else that you want to say about this issue?
No, I guess that pretty much summarizes it. Yeah, it's been fantastic.
Yeah, guys, thanks for listening. You can interact with us on Twitter and Instagram at the Redenbacher. We're posting like weapons grade memes there on both accounts there, so check those out if you want to see, Chogs throwing Pokeballs and anything else. So that's fun. We're on Podbean, Spotify, YouTube, Google Play, iTunes, pretty much anywhere you want. If there's a certain platform we're not on and you're dying to listen to us, give us a message or email us at theredenbacher@gmail.com, and we'll see what we can do to get on that platform. We want to make this as accessible as possible for you guys, and we'd love to have more listeners and your feedback. So any questions, again, just email us there at theredenbacher@gmail.com. And we'd love to hear from you guys. And with that, from the 01001 Nebula for Ben Bullerwell, this is Matt Murphy signing off.